Special Agent Maya Thompson pulled her FBI-issued Dodge Charger into the crumbling parking lot of the Oakridge Police Department, her dark eyes scanning the mix of patrol cars and personal vehicles. The morning sun glinted off her badge as she adjusted it on her blazer, a habit born from a decade of proving herself in rooms full of doubters. Inside her briefcase lay the files that had consumed her nights for the past week: 3 bank robberies, 2 dead security guards, and a pattern that had caught her attention, while everyone else was focused on the body count. The robberies seemed random at first glance: different times of day, varying amounts stolen, separate locations. But Maya had spotted something in the security footage that nagged at her trained eye. The perpetrators weren't just stealing money. They were accessing specific safe deposit boxes at each location. As she stepped out of her vehicle, Maya caught her reflection in the tinted windows. Her charcoal suit was crisp, her natural hair styled professionally, her posture perfect. Armor she'd learned to wear since graduating top of her class at Harvard Law, before surprising everyone by choosing the FBI over a cushy corporate career. The weight of her Glock 19 at her hip was reassuring, a reminder of her impressive marksmanship scores at Quantico. The precinct's automatic doors wheezed open, releasing a blast of stale coffee-scented air. Maya's heels clicked against the linoleum floor as she approached the front desk, where a young officer's welcoming smile faltered slightly as his eyes fell on her badge. She'd seen that look countless times before. The subtle shift from professional courtesy to something else entirely. "I'm Special Agent Thompson with the FBI. I'm here to see Captain Richards regarding the First Meridian bank cases." Her voice carried the quiet authority that had become her trademark. The young officer fumbled with his radio, and Maya used the moment to observe her surroundings. The bulletin board was cluttered with wanted posters and community notices, but nothing about the bank robberies. Interesting, given their violent nature. A group of detectives huddled around a coffee maker went suddenly quiet, their eyes darting in her direction before quickly looking away. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Marcus, her mentor at Quantico. "Remember, you're not there to make friends. You're there to catch killers." She allowed herself a small smile, remembering his words during her training. "Your brain is your best weapon, Thompson. Sharper than any gun they'll issue you." Captain Richards emerged from his office, a barrel-chested man with salt and pepper hair and smile lines that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Agent Thompson," he called out, his voice carrying across the bullpen. "Welcome to Oakridge. Though I have to say, we're a bit surprised the FBI is interested in a series of local robberies." Maya met his gaze steadily. "2 dead security guards make it more than just robberies, Captain. And the interstate nature of the banks involved brings it under federal jurisdiction." She followed him toward the conference room, aware of the eyes tracking her movement through the precinct. Inside, she began unpacking her files onto the conference table. Crime scene photos, witness statements, and surveillance stills spread out in precise order. A photo of the latest victim caught her attention. James Martinez, 52, father of 3, shot point blank while following standard security protocols. There was something personal about these killings, something that didn't fit the usual robbery gone wrong scenario. "I'll need access to all your case files, including any similar incidents from the past 5 years, Maya stated, not looking up from her materials. "And I'd like to interview the responding officers from each scene." "That might be a problem," Richards replied, his tone carefully neutral. "Our lead detective on these cases, James Barrett, is particular about his investigations." Maya finally looked up, meeting Richards' gaze. "Then I look forward to working with Detective Barrett on becoming less particular." Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus. "Trust your instincts. They haven't failed you yet." She squared her shoulders, ready for the challenge ahead. In her experience, the most dangerous criminals weren't always the ones robbing banks. Sometimes, they were the ones wearing badges, hiding behind a wall of blue silence. But Maya Thompson hadn't come to Oakridge to make friends or navigate police politics. She'd come to solve a puzzle that was leaving bodies in its wake, and neither Detective Barrett nor anyone else was going to stand in her way. Detective James Barrett watched through the blinds of his office as Maya interviewed yet another one of his witnesses. His coffee had gone cold, forgotten during his seething observation of the FBI agent who dared to step into his territory. 20 years on the force, and now this outsider thought she could waltz in and solve his case. "She's got Martinez's widow in there," Officer Chen said quietly, appearing at Barrett's shoulder. "Third hour of interviews today." Barrett's jaw clenched. He'd already interviewed Mrs. Martinez twice, got nothing useful. But here was Agent Thompson, leaning forward with such intensity that Mrs. Martinez had stopped crying for the first time since her husband's death. They were looking at something on Thompson's tablet, the widow pointing at the screen with trembling fingers. "Delete the surveillance footage from the east entrance," Barrett muttered to Chen. "The one from the day before the robbery. Technical malfunction, understand?" Chen hesitated, his young face clouding with concern. "Sir, that's evidence in an active technical malfunction." Barrett's voice carried the weight of 2 decades of accumulated favors and buried secrets. Chen nodded and slipped away, leaving Barrett alone with his thoughts and the scene unfolding in the interview room. What Barrett didn't know was that Maya had already cataloged every camera angle from all 3 banks. She'd noticed the pattern while everyone else was focused on the vault footage. The robbers weren't just taking money. They spent exactly 47 seconds at specific safe deposit boxes in each location. Box 847 at First Meridian, Box 847 at Central Trust, Box 847 at Oakridge Savings and Loan. Maya finished with Mrs. Martinez, escorting her out with gentle professionalism. As the widow passed Barrett's office, she paused. "Detective," she called out, her voice stronger than it had been in days. "Agent Thompson found something about Jimmy's case, something about the safe deposit boxes. Why didn't you tell me about that?" Barrett's face remained neutral, but his knuckles whitened around his coffee cup. "Still investigating all angles, Mrs. Martinez. We don't want to give you false hope." Maya watched this exchange with sharp eyes, noting Barrett's tension, the slight tremor in his hand as he set down his cup. She'd seen his type before, old-school cops who thought federal badges were an insult to their authority. But something here felt different, more desperate. Back at her temporary desk, Maya pulled up her secure FBI laptop and began typing her daily report. 3 seemingly random banks, all with a Box 847 access during the robberies. The coincidence was too perfect. She encrypted a request to the Financial Crimes Unit for ownership records of all 3 boxes. Barrett appeared suddenly, looming over her desk. "Mighty interesting theory you're working on, Agent Thompson." His voice dripped with false courtesy. "But you're wasting your time with the safe deposit boxes. This is a simple robbery crew, escalating to violence. Tale as old as time." Maya looked up, meeting his gaze. "Simple robbery crews don't time their vault access to the second, Detective. They don't target specific boxes, and they certainly don't have inside knowledge of bank security rotations." Something dangerous flickered in Barrett's eyes. "Careful, Agent. Start throwing around accusations of inside jobs. You might find yourself without any cooperation at all." "Is that a threat, Detective Barrett?" "Just friendly advice. Oakridge isn't like your fancy FBI offices. Things work different here." Maya stood slowly, her height matching his. "You're right about one thing, Detective. Things do work differently here. For instance, someone just had a technical malfunction with key surveillance footage. In my world, we call that tampering with evidence." Barrett's face reddened, but before he could respond, Maya's phone lit up with an incoming email. She glanced at it, then back at Barrett, her expression unchanging. "Interesting timing. The Financial Crimes Unit just got back to me about Box 847. Want to guess whose name is on the rental agreement at all 3 banks?" The color drained from Barrett's face. Behind him, Officer Chen appeared in the doorway, holding a stack of files. His eyes darted between them, sensing the tension. "You're in over your head, Agent Thompson. Barrett growled, low enough that only she could hear. Some cases aren't meant to be solved. Maya smiled, the kind of smile that had unnerved suspects in 100 interrogation rooms. That's where you're wrong, Detective. Every case has a solution. The only question is, how many people go down when the truth comes out? Barrett stormed out, shouldering roughly past Chen, who dropped several files. As Maya helped gather the scattered papers, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. A bank statement with multiple transactions to an offshore account, signed by James Barrett himself. The pieces were starting to fit together, and the picture they formed was uglier than anyone had imagined. Maya sat in her hotel room at midnight, case files spread across the bed like tarot cards predicting a dark future. Her laptop glowed with bank records, showing a disturbing pattern. Every time Box 847 was accessed, a wire transfer followed within hours to a Cayman Islands account. Not just any account. One connected to a shell company where Detective Barrett's signature appeared on the incorporation papers. Her burner phone buzzed, a contact inside the department she'd cultivated by leaving breadcrumbs of information with different officers, watching which ones disappeared. Officer Chen's text was brief. Barrett making calls. Night shift cleaning out evidence locker. Something big happening. Maya moved to the window, scanning the parking lot. A black SUV with tinted windows idled near her car, its occupants invisible but present, like wolves in the darkness. She'd expected surveillance, but not so soon. They were getting nervous. Her FBI-issued phone rang. Captain Richards, at this hour. Agent Thompson, his voice carried forced casualness. Just wanted to let you know we've had a breakthrough. Local crew confessed to the robberies. You can head back to your field office. We'll handle the paperwork. Maya's fingers traced the outline of the photograph on her bed, the latest victim's autopsy report showing defensive wounds that didn't match a random robbery. That's interesting, Captain. Especially since I'm looking at evidence suggesting these weren't robberies at all. They were cover-ups. Silence stretched across the line like a tripwire. I'm not sure what you mean, Agent Thompson. Richard's voice had hardened. 3 banks, 3 Box 847s, 3 dead guards who all work the same shift rotation, and 1 detective whose offshore account grows fatter after each incident. Maya kept her voice steady, playing her hand carefully. Tell me, Captain, did Barrett let you in on the whole operation, or just enough to keep you quiet? The line went dead. Maya immediately began moving. She encrypted her files and sent copies to 3 separate secure servers. The originals went into her briefcase with a GPS tracker hidden in the lining. Years of experience had taught her to prepare for betrayal. Her regular phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Loading dock. First Meridian Bank. 2 a.m. Bring files if you want answers. A trap, obviously. But sometimes the best way to spring a trap was to walk into it with your eyes open. Maya checked her weapon, put on her vest under her jacket, and activated her emergency beacon. She'd learned to play chess while others played checkers. And right now, she was setting up her pieces. At 1:45 a.m., Maya parked a block from First Meridian Bank. She'd fed different information to different officers throughout the week, tracking how the suspects always seemed to stay one step ahead. Now those breadcrumbs would become a trail leading right back to the source. Her phone lit up with another message from Chen. Barrett left station 20 minutes ago. Armed. Not alone. Maya smiled grimly. She counted on Barrett's rage overriding his judgment. Men like him couldn't stand being outmaneuvered by someone they saw as beneath them, especially when their empire was crumbling. She approached the loading dock through the shadows, briefcase in hand. The bank's security cameras were dark, disabled, just as she'd expected. But her own hidden cameras, planted days ago during a routine evidence review, were capturing everything. A figure emerged from behind a dumpster. Officer Chen, looking nervous. Detective Barrett sent me to get the files, he said, hand resting too casually near his weapon. Maya studied him, noting the sweat on his brow despite the cool night air. Did he tell you what's in box 847? Chen, did he tell you why those guards had to die? Chen's eyes widened slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. The box contains ledgers, records of every dirty cop on Barrett's payroll. That's why the guards had to die. They saw someone accessing those boxes outside normal hours. They were loose ends. Maya took a step forward, just like you're about to become. Chen's hand moved toward his gun, but Maya was already in motion. She'd seen the reflection in the loading dock's glass door. Barrett emerging from the shadows, weapon drawn. Her briefcase dropped, its GPS signal now broadcasting to FBI tactical teams waiting nearby. The dance of deception was ending. Now would come the violence that men like Barrett understood best. But Maya Thompson hadn't spent her career surviving in a man's world by being predictable. Barrett's voice cut through the darkness. You should have taken the hint and left town, Agent Thompson. Maya's hand moved to her weapon, her voice steady as steel. And you should have learned, Detective Barrett. I don't take hints. I uncover truths. Thunder rolled across the Oakridge sky as Maya backed into the abandoned warehouse, her weapon drawn but lowered. Rain hammered the metal roof, creating a deafening symphony of drops that could mask any approaching footsteps. Her concealed camera and transmitter pressed against her ribs beneath her bulletproof vest. Insurance policies that had saved more than one federal agent's life. Last chance to walk away, Thompson. Barrett's voice echoed through the cavernous space. Sometimes good cops have to get their hands dirty to keep order. You understand that, don't you? Maya moved tactically between stacked crates, her training taking over. Good cops don't murder security guards, Barrett. They don't steal from safety deposit boxes or run money laundering operations. Lightning flashed through the high windows, briefly illuminating the warehouse interior. In that split second, Maya caught sight of Chen's reflection in a broken window, positioning himself near the back exit. Barrett was trying to box her in. You have no idea how this town works. Barrett emerged from behind a column, his service weapon trained on her chest. Rain dripped from his jacket, his face contorted with rage and something else. Fear. 20 years I've kept order here. 20 years of making sure the right people got paid, the right crimes got solved, and the wrong ones disappeared. Maya's mind calculated angles and distances, noting Barrett's irregular breathing and the slight tremor in his trigger finger. Signs of cocaine use. Another piece of the puzzle falling into place. And how many people disappeared with those crimes, Detective? How many families never got justice because you decided who deserved it? A crash of thunder masked Chen's approach, but Maya had anticipated it. She pivoted sharply, using her FBI defensive training to grab his wrist as he reached for her. The young officer's surprise was complete as she used his momentum to slam him into a stack of crates, his weapon clattering across the concrete floor. Barrett charged forward, expecting to catch her off guard. But Maya Thompson wasn't just any FBI agent. The surveillance footage he'd deleted had never shown her full credentials, including her status as a third-degree black belt who'd trained presidential security details in close-quarter combat. She moved like liquid shadow, years of martial arts training flowing through every motion. Barrett's wild swing met empty air as she slipped past his guard. Her elbow found his solar plexus with surgical precision, doubling him over. But Barrett was running on rage and stimulants, and he recovered quickly, launching himself at her with the desperation of a cornered animal. You think your fancy FBI badge makes you untouchable? He snarled, managing to clip her shoulder with a glancing blow. You're just another outsider who doesn't know their place. Maya absorbed the hit, using Barrett's momentum against him. My badge doesn't make me untouchable, she replied calmly, executing a perfect Aikido throw that sent him sprawling. My training does. Barrett hit the ground hard but rolled to his feet, drawing a backup weapon from his ankle holster. But Maya had already anticipated this move. She'd spent her career dealing with men who underestimated her, who thought their physical strength or departmental power made them invincible. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the scene. Barrett with his backup weapon, Chen unconscious among the scattered crates, and Maya Thompson standing her ground, her FBI stance perfect despite the chaos around her. "You know what your problem is, Barrett." Maya's voice cut through the rain noise. "You're so used to bullying people into submission that you never considered someone might be stronger than you. Not physically stronger." She sidestepped his wild shot with fluid grace, but stronger in every way that matters. Barrett's next shot went wide as Maya closed the distance. Her hand struck his wrist with precision, disrupting his grip. The weapon fell, and in one continuous motion, she had him in a joint lock that no amount of cocaine-fueled strength could break. "James Barrett," she spoke clearly, knowing her transmitter was catching every word. "You are under arrest for the murders of James Martinez, Samuel Chen, and Robert Walsh. For conspiracy, corruption, and attempting to murder a federal agent." She secured his wrists with her handcuffs, her voice steady despite the exertion. "You have the right to remain silent." Although, she added as backup units breached the warehouse doors, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. "I have a feeling you're going to want to start talking very soon." The rain continued its relentless drumming on the roof, nature's applause for justice finally served. The precinct buzzed with controlled chaos as Maya stood in the observation room, watching Barrett through the two-way mirror. He sat handcuffed to the interrogation table, his police uniform now wrinkled and stained with blood from his nose, a reminder of his failed attack. The cocaine was wearing off, leaving him twitchy and pale under the fluorescent lights. "Agent Thompson." Captain Richards appeared at her side, his earlier hostility replaced with careful respect. "FBI Internal Affairs just arrived. They want to talk to you about everything that happened at the warehouse." "Of course they do." Maya didn't take her eyes off Barrett. "But first, I need 10 minutes with him." Richards hesitated. Given what just happened, that might not be the best. 10 minutes, Captain. He's already assaulted a federal agent. Let's not add obstruction of justice to the department's problems. The interrogation room door opened with a metallic click. Maya entered, her steps measured, carrying only a thin file folder. Barrett's eyes tracked her movement, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "Come to gloat." He spat. Maya set the folder down and took a seat, her posture relaxed but alert. "No, Detective. I came to show you something." She opened the folder, revealing photographs of 3 safety deposit boxes, all numbered 847. "We opened them an hour ago. Want to know what we found?" Barrett's facade cracked slightly. "You had no right. Federal warrant says otherwise. 10 years of detailed records. Every payoff, every covered-up crime, every dirty cop on your payroll." She laid out the photos one by one. "But here's what interests me most. The money trail doesn't end with you. Does it, James?" His handcuffs rattled against the table. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." "Actually, I do." Maya leaned forward. "Your operation was impressive. Using the banks to launder drug money, using your badge to eliminate threats, building a network of corrupt officers. But you made one crucial mistake." "Yeah, what's that?" "You assumed that because I'm a woman, because I'm black, I couldn't possibly be smarter than you." Maya's voice carried no anger, just certainty. "That arrogance led you to underestimate me. It made you sloppy. And now," she gestured to his handcuffs, "now it's made you vulnerable." Through the two-way mirror, Richards watched with growing unease as Maya systematically dismantled Barrett's entire operation. She wasn't just building a case, she was offering him a choice. "Your partners are already talking," Maya continued, sliding another photo across the table. "This was taken 30 minutes ago. That's Officer Chen giving his statement to FBI Internal Affairs. He's young, James. First-time offender. Know what that means." Barrett's face went ashen. "He'll get a deal. They'll all get deals. Everyone except the man at the top." Maya sat back, letting the implication sink in. "Unless, of course, there's someone even higher up that you'd like to tell me about." The interrogation room fell silent save for the hum of the fluorescent lights. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving behind a clean, rain-washed sky. It felt like a metaphor for what was happening inside the precinct, years of corruption being washed away, revealing uncomfortable truths beneath. Barrett stared at the photos for a long moment. Finally, he looked up at Maya, the last of his defiance crumbling. "If I talk, if I give you everything, what's in it for me?" "You'll still do time," Maya replied frankly. "That's not negotiable. But cooperation means we look at all the factors, including how you helped bring down something bigger than yourself." She stood, gathering the photos except for one, a surveillance image showing Barrett meeting with a well-dressed man outside the First Meridian Bank. "Think it over, but think fast, because right now everyone is racing to make a deal, and there's only so much mercy to go around." As Maya reached the door, Barrett's voice stopped her. "Thompson." She turned. "You were never the target I was supposed to eliminate." His words came out rough, defeated. "There's a bigger game being played, one that makes my operation look like a kid's lemonade stand." Maya nodded slowly. "I know. That's why I let you attack me in that warehouse. Sometimes you have to let the smaller predator strike to draw out the bigger one." She opened the door. "When you're ready to talk about who really owns those safety deposit boxes, I'll be waiting." She stepped out into the hallway, where a team of FBI agents waited with recording equipment. The power had shifted, not just within the precinct, but within the entire corrupt system that Barrett had represented. The real work was just beginning. The FBI's mobile command center hummed with activity as screens displayed surveillance footage, financial records, and telephone intercepts. Maya stood before a digital wall of evidence, connecting threads between faces and events that had seemed unrelated just days ago. Barrett's confession had blown the case wide open, revealing a conspiracy that reached far beyond Oakridge's borders. Agent Thompson, Assistant Director Walsh appeared at her shoulder, his presence a testament to how big this case had become. "Walk me through what you've uncovered." Maya gestured to the central display. 3 corrupt officers, including Barrett, 2 bank executives from First Meridian. But they were just the visible part of the iceberg. She pulled up a complex financial diagram. The safety deposit boxes were drop boxes for an international drug trafficking operation. The robberies weren't robberies at all. They were coordinated transfers disguised as crimes. Walsh studied the diagram. And the dead security guards. They saw something they shouldn't have. Maya brought up their photographs. Each guard was killed during their regular patrol, but not during the supposed robberies. They were eliminated because they noticed unusual access patterns to box 847. Across the room, Chen sat with FBI investigators, his young face drawn with stress as he detailed years of corruption. His testimony was proving invaluable, filling in gaps that even Barrett had left blank. "Sir," a tech analyst called out, "you need to see this." They gathered around his monitor as he played enhanced security footage from First Meridian Bank. The timestamp showed 2 days before the first robbery. "Watch the man entering the bank," the analyst pointed. "Now compare his gait analysis to this." A second video played, a press conference from 6 months ago. The speaker was Richard Hamilton, Oakridge's mayor. "Well," Walsh breathed, "that complicates things." Maya was already moving. "Get me everything on Hamilton's finances for the past decade. Property records, campaign contributions, everything." She turned to another analyst. "Cross-reference Barrett's phone records with the mayor's office." The command center erupted with renewed activity. Maya felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with a breakthrough. Each piece of evidence was a domino, and they were about to start falling. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Martinez. "Agent Thompson, I remember something about Jimmy's last day. He mentioned seeing the mayor at the bank after hours. Said it seemed odd." Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard, pulling up Martinez's final shift log. There it was, a simple notation about an after-hours visitor, written in his meticulous hand just hours before his death. "Director," she called out, "I need a warrant for the mayor's private office. And we need it now." Walsh was already on the phone. "Judge Parker." "Yes, it's urgent." "No, this can't wait until morning." Within an hour, Maya led a team of agents into City Hall. The building was dark, save for their flashlight beams cutting through the shadows. The mayor's office door yielded to their key card override. "Check everything," Maya ordered. "Every drawer, every file, every loose floorboard if you have to." She moved to the desk, her trained eye catching subtle details, wear patterns on the keyboard, a slightly discolored section of the wall behind a painting. When she pressed it, a hidden safe emerged. "Got something." An agent called from the bathroom. He held up a burner phone, found taped beneath the sink. Maya smiled grimly. "Bag it. Get it to tech." She turned her attention back to the safe. "And get me a safe cracker up here." The safe, when opened, contained exactly what she'd expected. Ledgers matching the ones from box 847, but these went back further. Much further. "My God," Walsh muttered, scanning the pages. "This isn't just about drugs. They were running everything. Protection rackets, bid rigging, judicial bribes." "Sir," another agent burst in. "Mayor Hamilton just booked a private flight to the Caymans. Takes off in 30 minutes. Maya was already moving toward the door. "Not if we get there first." "And Director." She paused in the doorway. "Have someone check if that flight manifest includes any other city officials. I have a feeling some rats are trying to leave the ship." As they raced toward the airport, Maya thought about Barrett sitting in his cell, probably realizing that his confession had started an avalanche. By sunrise, Oakridge would be a very different city, and somewhere in the darkness, a mayor was about to learn that no one, not even the highest official in the city, was beyond the reach of justice. The federal courthouse buzzed with tension on a crisp autumn morning. Every seat in courtroom 7 was filled. Journalists, citizens, and a sea of law enforcement officers in various uniforms. Mayor Hamilton sat at the defense table, his expensive suit failing to mask his unease. Beside him, Barrett looked smaller in his orange jumpsuit, the fire in his eyes extinguished by months in federal detention. Maya adjusted her dark blue blazer as she approached the witness stand. 3 months of building this case had led to this moment. Behind her, Mrs. Martinez sat in the front row, clutching a photo of her late husband. "Agent Thompson," the federal prosecutor began, "please explain to the court how you first discovered the connection between Detective Barrett's assault on you and the larger criminal enterprise operating within Oakridge." Maya's voice carried clearly through the hushed courtroom. "The assault wasn't random. Detective Barrett attacked me because I had discovered a pattern in the bank robberies, specifically the accessing of box 847 in multiple locations. When he realized I'd connected the boxes to his operation, he attempted to eliminate me, just as he had eliminated the security guards who noticed suspicious activities." The prosecutor nodded, pulling up surveillance footage on the courtroom screens. "This is from your concealed camera during the warehouse incident. Can you walk us through what we're seeing?" The footage played, showing Barrett's attack and Maya's defensive response. But more importantly, it captured his rage-fueled confessions between punches, admissions about payoffs, murders, and years of corruption. "Objection." Hamilton's attorney stood. "This footage is prejudicial." "Overruled," Judge Hawthorne replied. "Continue, Agent Thompson." Maya leaned forward. "The attack confirmed what we'd suspected. Detective Barrett wasn't just a corrupt officer. He was the enforcer for a criminal organization that had infiltrated every level of Oakridge's government. The safety deposit boxes contained ledgers documenting over a decade of criminal enterprises, all protected by Mayor Hamilton's administration." She produced a thick binder of evidence. These records show systematic corruption, rigged construction contracts, drug trafficking routes, judicial bribes. When honest officers or citizens got too close, they were eliminated. James Martinez wasn't killed during a robbery. He was executed because he logged an after-hours visit by Mayor Hamilton to the bank vault. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Hamilton's face had gone ash-gray. "And how did you obtain these records?" the prosecutor asked. "They were recovered from a hidden safe in Mayor Hamilton's office, along with a burner phone containing messages coordinating with drug cartels." Maya's gaze swept the courtroom. The same type of phone found in Detective Barrett's possession, and in the possessions of 3 judges, 2 bank executives, and 4 other high-ranking officials, all of whom have now agreed to testify for the prosecution. Barrett's attorney whispered urgently to him, but he sat motionless, knowing what was coming next. "Agent Thompson, is it true that Detective Barrett eventually cooperated with the investigation?" "Yes." Maya met Barrett's eyes briefly. Once he realized the extent of the evidence against him, he provided detailed testimony about the organization's structure and operations. His information was instrumental in preventing Mayor Hamilton's attempted flight to the Cayman Islands. The prosecutor approached with another piece of evidence, a simple police logbook. "Can you identify this?" "That's Officer James Martinez's final shift log. His last entry notes seeing Mayor Hamilton accessing the bank vault after hours." Maya's voice softened slightly. "He was killed less than 3 hours after making that entry." In the gallery, Mrs. Martinez wiped away tears as other victims' families squeezed her shoulders in support. "And what happened when you confronted Mayor Hamilton at the airport?" Maya's expression remained professional, but her voice carried steel. "He was attempting to board a private jet with 3 suitcases containing over $4 million in cash, multiple fake passports, and additional ledgers documenting offshore accounts. When confronted, he attempted to bribe the arresting agents." The prosecutor turned to the jury. No further questions. As Maya stepped down from the witness stand, she caught sight of Officer Chen in the gallery. He'd received a reduced sentence in exchange for his cooperation and testimony. His face showed the weight of his choices, but also relief. The relief of someone who had finally chosen truth over loyalty to corruption. The evidence was overwhelming, the testimony damning. By day's end, the jury would deliver multiple guilty verdicts, dismantling one of the most extensive criminal enterprises ever uncovered in local law enforcement. But for Maya Thompson, this wasn't just about winning a case. It was about proving that justice could prevail, even in places where corruption had taken deep root. Sometimes all it took was one person willing to stand their ground, even when facing impossible odds. 1 year later, Maya stood before a fresh class of police cadets at the newly established Oakridge Law Enforcement Training Academy. The lecture hall buzzed with energy, young faces eager to serve, veterans ready to embrace change, and a demographic makeup that finally reflected the community they would protect. "Your badge isn't just a shield," Maya began, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "It's a promise to protect and serve everyone equally, regardless of their background, their wealth, or their connections." Behind her, a screen displayed news headlines chronicling Oakridge's transformation. Mayor Hamilton sentenced to 30 years. Police reform bill passes unanimously. Former Detective Barrett's testimony leads to nationwide investigation. But it was the most recent headline that caught everyone's attention. FBI agent Maya Thompson, appointed to lead new anti-corruption task force. A year ago, this department was a cautionary tale, she continued, pacing the stage with measured steps. Today, it's becoming a model for reform. Not because we're perfect. We're not. But because we've learned that true strength isn't in protecting corrupt systems. It's in having the courage to tear them down and build something better. Officer Chen, now working with internal affairs, sat in the back of the room. His face bore the wisdom of hard lessons learned, but also pride in being part of the solution. Next to him sat Mrs. Martinez, who had become an advocate for police accountability and now served on the Civilian Oversight Board. "You might wonder why an FBI agent is teaching your ethics class," Maya acknowledged, drawing knowing chuckles. "It's because what happened here wasn't just about one corrupt cop or one crooked mayor. It was about a system that valued loyalty over integrity, power over justice." She clicked to the next slide. Surveillance footage from the warehouse confrontation with Barrett. This moment wasn't about physical combat. It was about moral courage. Every one of you will face moments where doing the right thing feels impossible, where the easy path is to look away, stay quiet, protect the status quo. The cadets leaned forward, captivated. But here's what I learned in that warehouse. Sometimes the biggest act of courage is standing your ground when everyone expects you to back down. Whether that's facing a corrupt officer twice your size, she smiled slightly, or speaking up when you witnessed misconduct from a fellow officer. Maya moved to the center of the stage, her presence commanding but approachable. The old guard used to say police take care of their own. They were right, but they forgot what that really means. Taking care of our own means holding each other to the highest standards. It means speaking up when we see wrong, even if the wrongdoer wears the same uniform. She gestured to a group of veteran officers sitting in the front row, ones who had helped expose corruption after Barrett's arrest. These officers proved that integrity isn't just a word in a manual. It's a choice we make every day, in every interaction, with every decision. The screen behind her changed to show statistics. Civilian complaints down 60%, solved crimes up 45%. Community trust ratings at historic highs. This isn't just about Oakridge anymore, Maya continued. Departments across the country are adopting our reforms. The task force I'm leading isn't just hunting corruption. We're building a new model of policing, one where accountability isn't a threat, but a foundation. She picked up a new police badge from the podium, redesigned after the scandal, symbolizing the department's fresh start. When you pin on this badge, you're not just joining a force. You're joining a revolution in blue. A revolution that says we can be both tough on crime and committed to justice. That says we can protect our communities without compromising our principles. Maya's voice softened, becoming more personal. A year ago, I stood in a warehouse facing a man who thought his badge made him untouchable. Today, I'm standing before the future of law enforcement, and I see something different. I see officers who understand that true power comes not from authority, but from earning the trust of those we serve. As she concluded her lecture, the cadets rose in standing applause. But Maya's attention was drawn to Mrs. Martinez, who wiped away tears while smiling. Her husband's death had helped expose a corrupt system, and now his memory was helping build a better one. Outside the academy, the sun set on a different Oakridge. Not a perfect city, but one facing its flaws honestly, determined to do better. And in classrooms like this, a new generation of officers was learning that the strongest weapon in law enforcement wasn't a gun or a badge. It was the courage to stand up for what's right, no matter the cost.